Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Copeland. Welcome to Career Transitions. I also have Renato Amarena with me as well. He's here for the second half of class today. So my portion will probably run about 45 minutes or so, and then Ren will come on for the second part of it. So hopefully everybody will take some notes. You have a handout. It's not really a handout, it's just one exercise that I'm going to cover a little bit later on as well. So a little bit about myself. I'm in a career transition phase myself for about the last 6 months or so. I was laid off from my job back in September. So one of the reasons why I came here, decided to contact Mark and do this workshop, is because I wanted to give back. There's a lot of information that I've obtained over the last 6 months of my life, and I just felt a calling to come back and help other people out that are transitioning the same way. So that's kind of why I'm doing this. So how many in the room right now, and again we have a small group here, have been laid off recently? Okay, so we have half the group. How about downsized? All right. Terminated. You get to use that word terminated, but that's okay. Resigned or confused. Just don't know where to go. All right. So we all fall into this at some point in time. Or you may have a job that you're still working in now, but you're not happy with it. And that's actually what happened to me. I was in training and development for 14 years, which is a pretty long time. But I just found myself over the last several years being really just despondent, really looking for a change, and didn't know how to get out of it. So this was kind of the kick in the butt that I needed to go out and do something different. So it really was the best thing that happened to me. So when we start thinking about next steps, where do we want to proceed next? What's probably the first thing that you do once you're out of a job? Whether you're laid off, you're downsized, what's probably the very first thing you do the next day? Or maybe when you come home that day?
Sleep in late.
Sleep in late.
That's what I do.
That's true. That hopefully doesn't become a long-term pattern, right? It could be. Anybody else?
Apply for unemployment.
Apply for unemployment, of course.
Yeah.
You're going to take care of the basics, the survival mode, take care of that, right? What else?
Start looking in the job section.
Right, well, that's what I was hoping somebody would come up with. You're going to start looking in the job section, whether it's going through the Help Wanted section, jumping on the websites, and that's what I did. Actually, the very next day I got in, I started trying to do my work through my old employer just because it was such a routine. I said, wait a minute, I have to reinvent myself and do something different. But I spent time going on those job sites, those job search websites, and probably a lot of wasted time too, because I spent the next 2 weeks throwing out my resume and not really knowing what I wanted to do. I really needed time to step back and reevaluate what I had done instead of being reactionary and going forward. So just try to keep that in mind, because that's the very first thing you're probably going to want to do. The second thing you want to be careful of as well is your feelings. You might have been working for an employer before that you were bitter, you had resentment against as well. And now if you're going to an interview the next week, what are you carrying with you?
Anger.
Anger. How do you think that's going to come across?
Poorly.
Poorly. Very good. Right. So you need, and I'll talk about that a little bit later too, but you need to take time to reflect and sit back and really look at those emotions and feelings as well, and really kind of flush those out a little bit, because if not, you're carrying that with you to the next job, to the next interview. So first thing is to get organized. This is one thing I really want everybody to think about here. Again, your first reaction is to just send out resumes, right? Start panic mode. We don't want to do that. You really want to kind of step back and say, let me get organized first. And I'm going to show you what I mean in a second. Get advice. If you have a partner, a friend, a mentor relationship that you can get involved with. Really good idea if you can do that. Somebody that can help you out. It might be through the Chamber of Commerce, the Better Business Bureau, just by going and networking. And maybe you find somebody in that group that can help you out. All right, and get refocused too. This is what I talked about a few seconds ago, taking time to grieve. So make sure you step back and you really let those emotions kind of work themselves out and go through that process. So from here, what I want to do a minute, let me just minimize this. Let me go up here. All right, here is my Google Drive that I have set up. How many have files in Google Drive? How many have ever used this before? So nobody? Okay. All right, where do you store information right now? Could be your contacts, could be notes that you have on various things. Where do you put that information? Okay, all right, can you hold that up for a minute? And that's okay, it's a little notepad. I actually have about 5 of those at home.
Yeah,
Just so you know, for separate notes altogether. I still haven't conquered that yet. But this is one of the first things that I did. Within probably about 2-week period of time, I set up all my files in Google Drive. Now, I'm not selling this for any reason. I don't care what form of contact management system you use, but this has worked really well for me. Number one, because it's online. I don't have to touch it. I don't have to worry about where these files are. I don't have to worry about, oh, my flash drive. I used to keep them there. Now I have 3 flash drives and I can't figure out what's on half of them. All right? So this is the beauty of doing this. What I've done here is if I come down to my drive, then you'll see I have folders up the top here for job search. Come down a little further. Then I have some for, this is my basic list right here. And then underneath there's a job search folder. So under here I have my resume. I have my informational interview letter, follow-up letter after job applications, interview questions. So I went on the internet, I scoured the internet and found what I thought to be the best internet or interview questions that are out there. I copied those and I brought them in. And it's actually really easy to do. Once you set up Google Drive, all you have to go is to New and File Upload, right in here. So you can go out there and find that file that you have saved, if it's a Word document, if it's an Excel document, PowerPoint, and then just upload it right into Google Drive. Pretty cool, huh? Jobs applied for. This is my biggest folder right here. I'll show you that in a second. LinkedIn recommendations. I'll take a look at that, and networking contacts. So jobs applied for. This is kind of scary because this is going back since October, and there's a lot of jobs that I applied for. And also, this folder encompasses not just jobs I applied for, it also encompasses recruiters, temp services. I kind of lump them into one folder. Now you may want to separate them out if that works better for you. So these are just some notes I have at the very top for my own reference material. And then I come down here, I created just a 4-column spreadsheet. On the left-hand side, I put the name of the job, when I applied for it, any notes about it, and then the contact information. So whether it's phone number, dates that I applied, and so forth. But this has been so helpful because in one document, I can go back here and see when I applied to an organization, how long ago it was, and then I can follow up with them. So if I have a date that I applied today, on the 26th, I may say, you know what, I want to go a week later, 10 days later, and follow up with them. Send them an email, give them a phone call, whatever it might be, I can go right back into the folder and put that date down in my comments as well. Especially if you're speaking to somebody, or if they've emailed you, you've had correspondence, then you'll have some notes, some information that you've gathered that you want to enter in here as well. And that's very helpful. So if you're speaking to a temp service, and you've had 3 people call you from the temp service, do you know if you talked to Todd, Sue, or Jane? You know, you may not remember their names, but if you put it in here, you will. Okay? Hello. Good. Okay. So I was going to come down a little further. I'm not going to go through all these. I'm not going to bore you to death, but when I come down a little bit further, you're going to see that I have volunteer opportunities as well. So I have that in here because this is also, I'll get into that a little bit later, but volunteering is a great way to get yourself out there and network. We're going to touch base on it in a few minutes, but of my volunteer opportunities that I'm considering, any night school opportunities, classes at night, survival jobs. What's a survival job? Pretty basic, right?
Something you're gonna take just to get you through.
Right, exactly. Job you're going to take just to get by. Now, you have to figure out what's going to work for you. If you're laid off, you're collecting unemployment, you know what your window is, 6 months, give or take. So you have to figure out, when does my survival job kick in? Is that going to kick in after 4 months, 5 months, at the end of 6 months? You have to think about that. Because you may not get the ideal job you're looking for, but now what's your backup? So this has to be in mind, in place, and toward the beginning of your process. If you wait 5 months out, what's going to happen? What's going to happen if you wait 5 months and your employment's running out next week?
You're gonna panic.
You're going to panic. So what are you going to do?
Take anything.
You're going to take anything you can get. Is that going to be a good decision? No. But if you've planned that out prior, if you thought about a survival job and thought about, maybe I can take a job that's going to pay me $12 an hour, but this isn't a field I'm interested in. and this can work out long-term, okay, I can look at that as a backup job, as a survival job. So you've put some forethought into it, not just taking any old job, but a job that can help to enhance your career path. Career options. All right, just a few more in here. Health and wellness. You can see I'm all over the place. Inspection jobs. I consider being working for an inspection agency, a code enforcement officer. I mean, I was all over the place here. And I'll talk about employment agencies that I've contacted as well are in here. And then when I come down to the very bottom here, you're going to see that I have a section set up for, hope I can get your laser pointer working here, Ben.
Yeah, the top button.
There we are, okay. Can everybody see Indeed.com right here? Doesn't seem to be working.
It doesn't work on a screen. The
Oh,
screen.
okay, all right. So, never mind. Indeed.com, does everybody know what that is? All right, it's a search engine. You could go in there and put in keywords. You can search by jobs that are within a proximity of 10 miles, 15 miles, 30 miles, and so forth. But what I've done is, I put down keywords in here because I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. Do I want to stay in training and development? Do I want to get out and pursue a different career altogether? Well, that's where I'm at. I'm pursuing something completely different. But why I'm going in here looking for jobs, I'm also thinking outside the box. I'm thinking not only for those training positions, but what else can I take my transferable skills and go into? So I thought about things that I like doing. I put the word fun in there because I want to be in a fun environment. I would love to be in a fun environment. And surprised when you put the word fun in there, you'll get creative, fun environment. You know? Now, it may not be what you're looking for. It may be a $9 an hour job, but this is the idea, is putting keywords in there. Community relations, trainer, coordinator, facilitate, operations, provider relations rep. These are all things that I thought I'd be good at doing. And I'll tell you how I derived at this in a few minutes. This is after a lot of research. I didn't do this in the first week, after leaving my position. Training, education, health program director, and so forth. So this is to keep me all organized in one document. Okay. Anybody have any questions about this so far?
I have a question about that Indeed thing. When I first got laid off, I decided, I'm transitioning from one career to something totally different.
Right.
So most of the stuff in my resume is from my old career and job, which I don't want to do anymore.
Right.
And I try to submit a resume. Well, they don't just hand your resume over to the new company. They make mincemeat out of it, and they pull out all these keywords, and then they try to capitalize on all the old stuff I used to do, which that's not what I'm interested in.
Right.
But they pulled out those keywords because I didn't have experience in the new job. So, I figured that job is toast because it's not going to, there was no opportunity to put a cover letter.
Okay.
And I got so fed up with them, I didn't know.
Were you able to think about revising that resume into other transferable skills that might have matched the requirements
I
of
just
that
gave
job?
up then.
You just gave up at that point. Okay. Well, what could she start thinking about doing to help where were you you were in computers, I think, before?
I was in computers. yeah.
Okay. And where are you trying to transfer into?
Like admin or secretarial or clerical.
Okay. So you might still be able to think about the computer skill set that you have.
Well, that's
And,
why I tried
and
to
use that to something. That's
talk
a,
about that in my cover letter, but
Right.
then there was no opportunity.
right,
do it.
to open that door up is a little bit harder. So now you've got to work a little harder outside the box. So what could she start looking into doing? I just talked about it a few seconds ago.
I would work on creating a new resume, a new version, have multiple versions of your resume.
Okay.
That's what I do.
That's one option, is to have multiple versions of your, that's what most people do right now anyway. In fact, I have at least 3 that I'm working on. One training and development, one for sales-related position, client relations, customer service. So I have 3 that I'm working on. So that's a good idea. I would also think about, volunteer opportunities. If you have time to do it, look to get into somewhere that you might be interested in. An area where you can get in and serve. It might be one day a week, it might be a Saturday morning somewhere, but if you get your foot in the door and talking to people, it's going to open up a ton of contacts for you, and a ton of opportunities. And most people don't think that. They think, I just need to get a job right now. I don't want to do that. Well, if you're staying in the same ministry, then fine. If you're in computers and that's where you want to go, then it's a little bit different. But who else really doesn't have a clue what they want to do? Okay, so most everybody in here, and that's including myself as well, all right? So we have to, again, think differently, and think what else, yes?
I have a question.
Sure.
I like to loop back around to what I used to do previously, like 15 years ago.
Okay.
I haven't done it, you know, I have like 22 years experience in marketing and advertising,
Mhm.
business communication, and then I left the field, and I've been doing all kinds of other crazy stuff now. So my resume reflects the last 15 years, and I'm trying to work my way back to
Right, to get back into
what
that.
I used to do.
Okay.
The opposite of kind of what you're doing. And that I find to be challenging because, you know, times, you know.
Yeah, times have changed, there's a lot of
Changing,
software,
different.
applications that have
Yeah.
come out and changed. And that's something you can look into, is trying to approach somebody, and we're gonna talk about LinkedIn in a second. Try to approach people that are in those industries
Right,
and sit down with them, try to meet them for a cup of coffee or network through the people you know. And
right.
sit down with somebody. Because if you're looking to get back into advertising, that world's changed.
Exactly.
in that
And,
amount of
you know,
time.
a young-
And so you don't even know where to
young
begin.
Environment, yeah,
Right.
that's right. And
So-
now it's all social media and, you know.
That's right.
And I'm kind of outdated. I mean, I'm not up to speed with all that
Yeah.
new media.
That's right, and that's why I have a little section on networking here. I could spend 5 hours on networking. You know, I mean, how important that is, but I can't stress that enough to really start using your contacts through LinkedIn, through friends, through all your social, your sphere of influence, as much as possible to do that, because you want to find out what's hot out there. What area should I go for? Medical coding and billing is hot right now, but, you know, how's that going to change in 5 years? So if you've been out of that field for 5, 10 years, you might think, oh, I'm just going to go back and get a degree in medical coding and billing. Well, you know what, maybe they're hiring nurses to do that type of work, or maybe it's not as rosy as it once was. So by talking to somebody, you're gonna find out, maybe do I need to educate myself, go back to
Take
school?
classes, that's
And take some
right.
classes to get started, but you
Yeah.
need to know what classes to take.
Right.
And that's why it's important talking. I would probably talk to 2 or 3 people. Just like anything, when you're shopping around, and get a few people out there, try to get a consensus. If they're all telling you to take Adobe, you know, Photoshop, Illustrator, and this and that, and that's, you know, the latest version is 2014, version 3, whatever it might be, then you know, hey, okay, this is the path where I need to head to. So that would probably be a really good start. Okay. All right, so let me go back in my PowerPoint again. So let's come back here to this one. So,
Can I just mention that while you have that up again?
sure.
With the anger, everybody kind of says the same thing, get rid of your anger. Nobody tells you how to do it.
Okay.
It's something everybody just glosses over, yeah.
Okay, and that's funny that you mentioned, I'm gonna go ahead and sit down here, because I have to bring this up, it's a little bit easier to sit
But
down.
nobody's able to tell you how to do that.
Okay, well, I just happen to have an article for you.
Okay.
How's that? Been laid off or fired, 7 steps not to take. Do you like that one? That's a pretty good
I think
segue.
I've seen that.
Okay, have you seen this one before? And I have a copy too, so if anybody needs this, just give me your email address afterwards and I can send this to you. I won't go through the very beginning, I was just telling about the story of what happened to this individual. But 7 common responses to avoid after you've been fired or laid off are playing it over and over in your head. How many times have we done that?
Well, that's automatic, you can't turn it off.
Yeah, well, that's the
Tough to
idea.
do.
It's not saying not to think that way, but and that's what I talked about before, going through your emotions. Let it cycle itself out. It's like grieving. You know, the steps of death, what they talk about. You have to work that out. All right? At least to the point where you're comfortable with. If you jump back into something a week later and you're so bitter at your previous employer, again, that's going to come out. You really need to work through it. Okay? Again, they experience it over and over in their heads. They think about every conversation, clue, and sign that they were the ones. It was all my fault. It's all my fault. You know, I'm the one who's wrong. That's not true. That's not true. There's both parties at play, you know. A friend of mine the other day I was talking to, and he talked about how companies transition so quickly now that they, you know, that people aren't staying in the same jobs. And we all know that, as long as we used to. But the speed of business is moving so fast these days. A lot of people just can't keep up to it. You know, if you have the psyche, the type of personality that doesn't like deadlines and changing environments all the time, that's not you. That's the way the business is going. You know, that's part of your makeup and who you are. You know, you need to accept that too. And I'm going to talk about some tips for that in a second. All right. So what to do instead? Try to get some closure in the situation by reaching out to several mentors or people you trust that are in the know. Ask them for their candid, forthright feedback. Okay, so some good information to keep in mind right here. Venting to everyone that you know about it. Again, getting it out, expressing, getting it off your chest, all right? What to do instead is tell your best friends, trusted colleagues. So you don't want to tell everybody in the world that you know. You want to tell your best friends, your colleagues, those that know you, all right? Not everybody in the world has to know what happened, and all your feelings that go along with it. But you do need to talk to some people that you're close to. So your spouse, your friends, whoever your main sphere of influence and your contacts are, all right? Blame it 100% on the other party. It's easy to do, right? It's easy to get out and say, it's their fault. Either one, you're either going to say it's my fault all the way and be bitter about it, or you're going to go back and say it's their fault. I can't believe they did that to me, right? More likely, examine the part that you played in it. So more likely there's a percentage that you had something to do with that. Whatever it might be. It could be 10%, it might be 90%. If it is 90%, so what? Look at what you did and what you can work on. There's no point going back. You only can go forward, and so you need to learn from those mistakes. And everybody does that. I don't care if you're the CEO of a company, if you talk down to somebody the wrong way, that can hurt you as well. I don't care who you are. We've all done things, we've all said faux pas that we want to take back, right? Mistakes that we make. So again, this is how you learn from that and move on, okay? So again, I have all this, I won't go through.
Okay, actually I have not seen this, but yeah, I'll
Yeah, that's why I'm not going to spend time going through every line of it, okay, guys? So just so you know, failing to learn the lessons you meant to learn, what to do instead, think about the top 3. Most positive, empowering lessons you can learn from this experience. What are you aware of now that you weren't before? What positive traits do you recognize in yourself that you didn't see before? All right? So really a good, so again, it's all
Thank
there.
you, yeah.
Well,
that's
excuse
good.
me,
Sure.
what I find difficult is not to badmouth the company too, like in an
Exactly.
interview, why did
Exactly.
you leave or what happened? And you have to be so careful not to say, well, because, I had an incompetent manager and the company was really screwed up and they wouldn't take any of my suggestions.
That's
and,
right. That's right.
You can't
No,
do
and
that, but it's the truth
Yeah.
in your eyes, but
That's
you
right.
can't say.
I made that mistake one time in the last 6 months for a job interview, a phone interview. And I was truthful. I came out and said exactly the right way, but that was it. And so I realized, you have to watch what you say as well. It was complete, honest truth, but that's
Yeah.
not necessarily what they want to hear, Anytime they think that there's going to be conflict between you and somebody else,
Right.
that's going to put a big dividing line right there. They want to know that you're going to be working across the board. Even though your manager might have been that complete jerk,
Yeah, you have to
You
put
know?
a positive twist on it.
you have to put a spin on it that's going to be in your favor. So you start thinking about it and saying, well, you know what? The environment had changed over the course of time, Roles and responsibilities had changed and I just wasn't the right fit anymore. And it was time for me to move on. So you're going to have to craft your own letter. And I have something I can show you a little bit later if I have time of what I wrote down. I wrote those down.
Yeah, it's good to know.
You know,
have
I
it
wrote
ready.
down, exactly. I have what I call my scripts.
Yeah.
So I have my scripts down that if somebody calls me, I haven't done this yet, but I want to, is have a script with me when I'm on the road. So when an employer calls me for a phone interview, if I have to take that interview, I can take it out of my pocket and just have a little script that I can follow. But think about that. If you get a phone interview, if you're lucky enough to be at home, right, you can pull your computer up and have a window on the company, another window on your scripts to follow. That can really help you. And I've done that, and it's helped me out tremendously. In fact, I had a phone interview at home that I had a few pieces of paper laid out. One was on the company, one was my script, and that helped me to relax because I knew that I could go to that script and not fumble over my words. Okay? So,
That's good.
all these little things, that's what I've encountered that have really helped me out. And keep notes of that. That's why the Google Docs are so important, to keep notes of that. When you're interviewing, when you're going after the informational interviews, have a script for that as well, so you can follow. You can change it and work within there, but at least when you're calling somebody, you're not fumbling over your words. And if we're asking you what happened, why are you in your situation, you've got your script right there, to the point where you've got it memorized. And it's the same with an elevator speech. How many have an elevator speech? Or know what that is?
Not yet, because I don't know what it.
Okay, well, you've heard that term before.
Okay,
Right,
yeah.
right, and that's okay, and maybe you don't know what you want to do, and that's fine, all right? There was a gentleman who spoke over at a transition called My Career Transitions over in Great Valley. Fantastic place if you haven't done so. Go ahead and jot it down. It's free. It's usually on Saturdays, Ren, I believe, right? The gentleman's name was Cohen. What was his-
Todd Cohen.
Todd Cohen,
Yeah,
who was a
great
presenter,
guy.
fabulous presenter. But the thing I came away with there, he talked about getting a business card, a networking card set up. And the idea that he had was different than other networking cards I've seen. Most networking cards will have information about your prior, business, prior skills. So if I was training and development, I might put training and development down there. But that's not really who I am and what I want to do. I'm transitioning. So he got you thinking that you're more than that. You're more than just what you did at your previous job, correct? Won't we all say that? Right? You have a lot more attributes and skills than I do as just a trainer. I'm not a one-word person, right? Hopefully not. So he had us thinking to write adjectives down that really described who you are. And then from there I could say, you know what, I was really good at cultivating and building relationships. And that's what I put down on my business card. And I felt a lot more confident when I went out there to hand that out, because that was really who I am and really what I'm good at doing. And it didn't say I was in training development only. So it kind of opened up the door for me to look at other avenues and get people to say that, hey, this guy's pretty good building relationships. Maybe he might be good in customer service, client relations, sales. See where I'm going? Could still be in training, but it opened up the doors that I'm a little more multifaceted than just a training and development professional. Okay. So let's keep going down here. So through the self-assessment, we're going to look at some career books. And I have 4 of these up here, which I'm not going to go through all of them. All right? I'm not promoting, I'm not getting money for these. I just happen to buy each one of these. So one's called a halftime book. It has a little more of a theological perspective in there, if that's your thing or not. But I felt to be really good because it talked about going to that point in life. I'm approaching 50. So what am I going to do with that next phase in life? It's not like I'm going to retire at 65 more likely, right? We're working until probably we're 70. And even after that, I want to start thinking about what I'm going to be doing, what I'm going to be fulfilled at doing. Maybe I'm not collecting a paycheck, but am I going to volunteer somewhere? Am I going to work for a nonprofit organization? What's going to really make me tick, make me happy until I'm 70, 75? Because I want to do something. I'm not going to sit there and just watch TV or go golfing every day until I'm 80 years old, right? So, what color's your parachute? Everybody knows this book before. If you haven't, I actually went through it for the first time. I've seen this book over the years and never filled it out. So I took the time to actually go through. It has what's called a prioritization grid in here. You really can't see that too well. But it's all these exercises, and use pencil when you're with it as well. Things like that you're good at doing: attention to detail, follow through, organize, like to communicate, research, plan. I like to instruct, coordinate, synthesize, initiate. So a lot of those key adjectives too, and then it really kind of helps you to put that together. Okay, these are the skills I'm good at doing. What can I take from here for those skills? Where can I apply those? And then you're going to get to the point where you're doing what's called a flower petal, like this. And this is really great too, because it has sections like my preferred kinds of people to work with. Who do I like working with? I want to work for that jerk, that manager I couldn't stand, right? Now, sometimes you don't have a choice, right? But while you're in this transition phase, think about that. Think about the environments you want to be in. And there's a whole book that I'm going to talk about in a second that really talk about the type of environments that you're in. What can I do? What do I love to do? My goal, my purpose, or mission in life. My favorite knowledges or fields of interest. My preferred places to live. I mean, people think about that one as well, right? Am I tired of the winters? Do I want to stay around here? Do I want to go to a warmer environment? I mean, it's crazy. Maybe you don't have a choice, but things to think about as well. And then it's going to have a little section in here that has 3 circles that overlap. Everyone see that? And you've probably seen these before, that will have interests, skills, and environment. Usually something like that. And then where that sweet spot is right in the middle is an area you can really think about pursuing. You starting to get the idea? So you're starting to look at all those factors into play as well. My interest, my skills, where do I like working? All right? And that's critical because this book right here, Career Match, was one of the best books I read. I love this book. Because what it does, there's a little test in the beginning. It's very similar to I think it's the Carl Jung study that gives you the codes like the INTJ. You've ever done those 4-letter codes?
Like introvert?
Right, exactly. And they start telling about the environments that you like to work in. If you haven't done one of those tests, fill it out. It's really good. And this book, is fabulous because what it does, it says, it codes me as a gold-green introvert. You wouldn't think that, right? I'm actually more introverted than I am extroverted. But it tells me right here, I like working in a stable, well-respected institution with a predictable future. Yes. How many of us don't want to do that, right? But this is, what it's talking about here is this is really thinking about your psyche as well. That if you're working in an environment that's not conducive to your personality type, it can really make you sick. And my last employer, that's what happened. In the last couple of years, I got to the point where it physically started taking a toll on me. Because I just knew I was stressed out by that environment. It wasn't conducive to who I was. So I needed to move on. It involves concrete and practical projects, is oriented to serving both the customers and staff. I like doing that. I like customer service, helping people out, making a difference. Values and returns loyalty and commitment. So I want to work for an employer that's going to value them. Okay? Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, who's the author of that?
The author is Showa Zichi. With me. I'll let you look at it.
Okay.
Okay, you can take a look at it. You can pass it around too if you want to. Okay?
Okay.
So again, that's another type of book. And then this one is getting the job you want even when no one's hiring. Anybody heard of Ford Myers before?
Yes.
All right. He's a career coach, kind of a career guru, if you want to call it that way. And he's spoken over the Great Valley Center as well. But this is a fabulous book as well. What it does, it gives you, and I'm just going to pull out one page here because again, there's so much information. It talks about an example of an ideal workday. What's your ideal workday? Have you ever thought about that before? When you wake up in the morning, what do you want to be doing? Do you want to be checking emails in the morning? Do you want to be going out somewhere, driving to an appointment, coming back? Do you want to do multifaceted things? Do you like sitting behind a desk all day long? Again, it's really talking about your ideal workday that ties in with the environments that we mentioned as well. I think that's one of the most important factors to start looking into your next move as well is where do you want to be? Where are you going to be comfortable in the type of environment? A lot of people make the decision you do, I'm going to go back into marketing advertising, And that's great. If you like that type of environment, I'm not knocking it. But if that has changed so much over the years, that it becomes really not conducive to who you are and your personality type, is that where you want to be going? Maybe you can still use those skills
Right.
and go into something else, maybe not an ad agency, but maybe
Yeah.
you're a creative person and you can start looking into taking those skills somewhere else. You follow me?
Yeah, because I realized, well, there was a reason why I left, so I have to remember that too, that, I got burned out and I got
That's right.
kind of, I just didn't want to be in that environment anymore. I wanted to change, and then, and the farther I got away from it, though, the more attractive it looked to me again.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because I was in marketing, so I
Yeah,
did that.
marketing.
And I would have people coming over to me at 4 in the afternoon, project managers, and dropping things off and saying, I need this by 5. And I would tell people literally that I'd be scrambling, I'd be running back and forth between, getting out to UPS or to the fax machine or a copier, making presentations, literally running
Yeah.
down the hallway. And I said, this is not what I want to do.
I know.
If you give me time, I can work on it, but I'm
Yeah.
not the type of person that can fly like that. So
Right.
you have to think about that.
Yeah.
I wasn't let go, but I was on short-term disability due to stress. I worked for a bank, a local bank,
Okay.
and I've been there 21 years, and it used to be fun. Now it's not fun anymore.
that's
And I would get chest pain, just everything, and it was Wells Fargo, I don't know if anybody's
No, it's
but
okay. Yeah.
And so I just made the decision, because it was over, and I thought I was gonna have to go back for a little bit, so today I decided I can retire. So I retired, so now I'm gonna look into what I wanna do now.
Good, great. You're in a position in your
So-
life that you can do that, so.
Yes, and I didn't think I
that's-
could, and I thought, I wasn't thinking outside of the box. I met, I don't know if you know Lynn Williams.
Yes, I do.
I met her, and
Yes.
and I've been going to all different kinds of workshops.
Good.
And so now I'm seeing there's more out there, more that I can do, and I was even thinking of maybe opening a consignment shop myself, so I don't know.
That's
But
great, yeah.
My mind is,
There's so many opportunities these days. I mean, it's unbelievable. So, yeah, just keep talking to as many people as you can. Self-assessment test, that's pretty basic, I won't go into that, but, you know, I talked about one in the book, the Myers-Briggs. So if you haven't done that before, you know, do a self-assessment test. The other one is the, Ren, help me out, the DISC.
Disc profile.
The DISC profile,
That's a good one.
DISC profile's a pretty good one.
I've done that one.
Any other ones you can think of? Okay.
Myers-Briggs, you mentioned.
Myers-Briggs.
That's good.
Okay. So transferable skills, you know, they're pretty basic. I have some handouts up here. There was a class on this that was done by Hire One, again, over at Great Valley, that I took. No, I'm sorry, this one was through, the Career Link out in Exton. Has anybody heard of the Career Links before? Okay. Are you aware that through the Career Link, that they'll give you up to $3,500 one time in your life? They'll give you up to $3,500 for further education.
Just, about that, I've been going here.
Pretty cool, isn't it?
For 2
All right. They also have an orientation class. Take the orientation class. All right. They'll cover that. And you can sit down with the counselor. They have a test, an in-house test that you can take, a career test. They have a lot of classes. They'll help you with retraining. So if you haven't done so, it's really great to look into. All right. So anyway, the class was done by Fort Myers on this one. So identifying your transferable skills and so forth, and an exercise on that. So I can leave this here if you want to make copies of it later. You know, come up and feel free to grab that. Okay. And what I did, I'm kind of retracting back on the What Color's Your Parachute book, is I wound up sending this out to about 10 people I knew. Ren, you were one of them. I had my career transition sheet that I wrote up here, and I just said, please look at the sections below. The top half shows my favorite knowledges or fields of interest. The bottom half shows my favorite transferable skills. Please write as many combinations on the bottom of the page. So that's what I did. So I had people look at this and write as many combinations of what they could think of using these skills that I might be good at. And knowing who I am too. So it's a combination of knowing me and what I might be good at doing too. And it doesn't just have to be people you know. You can take this to anybody. If you're at a career event somewhere and you meet somebody, sit down with them, bring this out and say, you know, during your break session, can you do me a favor? Just spend a few minutes and fill this out for me. What do you think? You'd be surprised what they can tell you, you know? Things you never even thought about before and areas you might want to go into. Keyword search on Indeed and Manta.com. All right, let's take a look at this one. Has anybody ever heard of Manta, M-A-N-T-A? Okay. It's a business directory. So what I did sometime back in November, I said I need some volunteer experience. I need to transition out from what I was doing before, from training and development, and start thinking about what other options are out there. And I thought about getting into the nonprofit sector, but also thought about staying in education. You know, I like training and development. I just don't like the chaos, the whole corporate mentality, but I still like helping people out and educating. So what can I do with that? So by typing the word education in there, I wound up scrolling through and found educational agencies in here, Career Kaplan Institute, you know, and some of these I bypassed, but what I did is I came down and I looked for a website. And especially on the right-hand side, I looked for sections that were a little more robust, like one right here, that had several links on there. And I found one that was a nonprofit organization in Philadelphia, and then what I did is I emailed the founder of the company. I didn't hear back for about a week or two. So I thought, oh, here's another one. I'm just sending out emails. I'm not hearing anything back. So what do you think I did next? I called. I picked up the phone, and I called and asked for the founder. Did he call me back? What do you think?
Maybe.
That's a good answer. No, he didn't call me back. Not then. But about 2 weeks later, he did. And we spoke for a little bit. And he was telling me about his organization, that they're trying to put computers in every school in Philadelphia. Because Philadelphia is so impoverished down there, and they don't have the budget for keeping up with newer computers. I thought, this is great. I can get in there. I contacted him about doing workshops. That's what I did, because they have workshops on, maybe I could do a career transition workshop or something to that nature for these kids in high school to help them go on to college. So that was my intent of going there. I met with him at Panera's, but on the phone, I also told him that my wife was a teacher in Philadelphia School District. You think he wanted to talk to me more?
Yes.
Okay. And I almost didn't mention that at the end of it. I don't know why, but I did. And once I said that to him, he was ready to get together with me right away. Now, was I lucky? Sure, there's a little bit of luck in there as well. But start thinking about those connections. Start thinking about something that can tie in to a place that you're reaching out to. And that's what I did. I tapped into somebody I knew that worked in the Philadelphia School District. All right? So from that, long and short, we got together. I've been volunteering with him ever since. So we'll see what happens. He wants to bring me on full time. I don't know. We'll go from there. Okay? But Manta, great site to take a look at. Okay, let's go back here again. Okay. Networking events. So somebody mentioned this before, the BANG, the My Career Transitions. Have you heard of BANG before? B-E-N-G? Okay, if you haven't, you've heard of it?
I haven't been there. I found out with Lynn Williams, she told
Yes.
me about, there's one in
Yeah.
Berwyn. And
That's right.
if you go on her calendar.
That's right. Renato's actually speaking at one tonight, at a BANG meeting down in Media.
Yeah.
So if you
o'clock.
want to go down to that, it's available, but it's great because what they do, and hopefully I have this here somewhere with me, is they ask you to do a one-page bio. Have you done that, Ren?
Yeah, I didn't know.
I didn't bring it with me.
Yeah, I have-
apologize for that. That's okay.
Yeah, I have a link that Lynn's been sending out about me being the guest speaker tonight, and a little bio about me and what
Right.
the topic is, and
Right.
All right.
No, well, that's for
Nice
you,
job.
but what they ask everybody to do is write up a little bio on yourself. A one-page, kind of a one-page resume, but there's more involved than just your traditional resume. So if you go onto Bang's site, you'll see what they're talking about. There's some examples on there, and it's really great. So you can take that and hand that out while you're networking to people as well, and they get a better idea of who you are. A little more creative than just a resume. Resume's like, oh, who wants to see that, you know? So, all right. My career transition, take small steps. Night classes, hobbies. Again, start thinking about some things. Get moving, get started. You know, don't just sit there and be frustrated. You know, do something. Take a night class, even if it's something that interests you. There's a lot of free classes out there. There's a lot of websites. Udemy.com, UDEMY.com is a free site, I believe, that has educational classes on there. A ton of those on the internet that are available as well. You need to brush up on certain skills. Take your skills. I know, Mark, if you have classes here that are available on Word, Excel, PowerPoint, you know, that I mentioned over at the Career Transitions. Wear multiple hats. What do you think that means? Any guesses on that one? Wearing multiple hats is really thinking about different jobs. Thinking about trying out a few different jobs. And maybe having 2 part-time jobs that make 1 job. It's a different world that we live in today. It's no longer 1 job, you stay there for 30, 40 years, is it? All right? Right, you know, everybody knows that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So start thinking about that. Maybe there's 2 part-time jobs that you might take for the time being. One is in marketing that you're trying to pursue, but one could be in another area that you're looking to go into. Okay? So you could go to a temp service and apply for that and see if they have a part-time job available for what you're trying to do. At least to get experience in working with something and see if that's where you want to fit into. So just a thought. Talked about the elevator speech. Seeking smaller companies that are under 50 employees might be an area to go into. Those are more apt to take people that are transitioning in than, you know, a huge corporation. You might have the ability to get in there for an under 10 office that will look at your skill set and abilities and say, hey, this person can come in and hit the ground running and we can help them out, as opposed to, you know, a traditional job posting where you need 20 different, you know, skills to get this position. I went to a workshop seminar in Philadelphia, a 2-day workshop back in November, and it was vocational transformations. The lady made a good point. She said, go out to coffee shops that are nearby the location or the jobs that you're interested in going to, or coffee shops that are around the corner from the job that you're considered applying to. Anybody know why?
That's where the employees go.
Employees go, right, or somebody. She said even talk to the janitor too,
Yeah.
which I thought is interesting too. I don't know how much the janitor is going to know, but you know, but that's great. If you're sitting there at lunchtime, you may get a chat to somebody in the company and find out. Again, just informational purposes. You'll be surprised how many people will talk to you on an informational basis because they love to talk about themselves. They love to talk about what they're doing. You know, as long as you're saying, I'm not here for a job, I'm just trying to get information. what do you do? What's your corporate, what's your environment like here? You know, what's it like growing? Are the people happy there? They have lunch breaks and so forth. I started looking at non-profit corporations. I found something called a B corporation. Anybody ever heard that term before? Stands for beneficial or benefit corporation. These are corporations that have environmental and social issues in mind, so they hold the the shareholders to a higher level, so to speak. You know, to be qualified as a B corporation, you have to be taking care of the environment more and making sure you have those issues, that you're working on that, and your employees are working on that. So I thought this could be an interesting company to work for, a place like that that's going to value their employees. You know, they have ping pong tournaments on Friday and happy hours or whatever. You know, it's just a different mindset than you're another number to me. I want to get rid of you and move on to something else.
Yeah, and if they care about the environment, you know, and if you care about the environment, then, you know, or animals or helping children or whatever, you know, that kind of compassion.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So it's just, again, it's just thinking differently, thinking what else is out there that, you know, and that was just from my research and stumbling upon that.
Yeah.
All right, let me let's keep moving down here, because Ryan has to come on pretty soon. Networking. All right, again, I could go on for hours about networking, but the only thing I really wanted to talk about here is really just focusing on LinkedIn to use networking. How many of you used LinkedIn before, signed up with LinkedIn? Okay. All right.
I went to CareerLink to a class,
Mhm.
and I think, you know, I followed the steps for the instructor and got on, but I haven't looked at it since. That's terrible. I
Okay.
need to
All
go
right.
in
And that's okay.
and build, I guess, a profile or.
Right, just build a profile on there. There's a summary section. You want to fill out the summary on there. Then you can list it's going to be a little bit different than your traditional resume. So think of that way too. Don't just list exactly what's on your resume onto LinkedIn. LinkedIn is more social. It's more, you know, trying to get people an idea of who you are. Again, for me, instead of just putting on training and development, I put down more cultivating and building relationships. So I really try to expound upon some other things that I'm good at doing on my LinkedIn profile. But the cool part about it, and I'll show that to you in a second. Let me grab a seat here. How to use LinkedIn search to find sales leads, hire top candidates, and hunt dream jobs. Here's this article. Okay, and again, I'm not going to spend time going through all this, but it's here. So this gives you some ideas how to go through, land freelance work by going on doing an advanced search in LinkedIn.
So that's at Zapier?
No, that's the website.
Where
But
this article?
I'll send it to you. I'll send the link to you. I don't know what Zapier is, but I just found it. So I'll send the link over to you. Okay? And then you can just scroll through and then look for the section that works for you. Okay? Use LinkedIn, save search to watch for new customers. Track down hiring managers. Here's the one I wanted to show you right here. So you can track down hiring managers. Who doesn't want to do that, right? All right, and see, this is a different approach than what you're used to before. It's not the same as, you know, I was in my job for 14 years. So I wasn't job searching during that time period. Before that, it was send your resume out, and that's it. LinkedIn wasn't even around. So this is where employers are going to look for candidates. This is where you can go and network and feel okay to do that. Like you're not standing on anybody's toes because it's so socially acceptable now, Facebook, LinkedIn. This is what people are doing. And so first of all, you have to wrap your mind around that that's okay. It's okay to do that. All right, so let me get out of here and come up in here to LinkedIn. Okay, so if I wanted to target Pico, Philadelphia Electric Company, for example, I can put the name of Pico in the very top here and hit search. All right, and then you will see that they come up here on the left-hand side. There's second degree connections. Here's Pico Energy, 11 people in your network. Everyone see that? All right. So I can come down here and say, you know, give me my second degree connections, all right, and so forth.
So wait, does that pull up the people who you know who work at Pico, or what are you saying?
Well, that's the idea. That's what I'm going to try to get to. So I'm going to, actually, let me go back here and try something else a minute. Because I want to get to another screen. It's not what screen I want to get to. So you see where it says first connections, second degree connections. Your first connections are one-on-one, maybe a friend, you know, or maybe you and I send emails back and forth to each other to connect. You know, Ren and I are in first connection. So I can send him an email today, vice versa. Second degree connection, I can't do that.
Okay.
All right? So if I wanted to contact you, I don't have your connection. Maybe Ren is associated with you. Maybe Ren's my second level. You're my first level, I'm trying to get to you. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hunt down my second degree connections at Pico. Follow me?
Well, he's your first connection.
Well, if I was trying to get to you.
And I would be second, right?
So, I'm sorry, yes, he's first,
Yeah.
and then you would be my second,
Right,
correct?
because he
Because
and I are
he
connected.
immediately and I know each
You
other.
and I are not.
Correct. So I'm gonna email Ren,
Right,
and I'm gonna say, what's your first name?
Joanne.
Joanne, okay. I'm gonna say, Ren, you know, I'm really interested in pursuing opportunities at Pico.
Uh-huh.
I see that Joanne works in wherever. It doesn't have to be human resource. I don't have to necessarily target the top hiring person,
Uh-huh.
you know? But if that happens to work out that way, that your position is a hiring type of position, just coincidentally you're connected to Ren, that's fantastic.
Uh-huh.
Follow me? But if you're an employee there, that's okay too, because then he'll send you an email for us to connect.
Okay, so he would suggest then that I connect
Exactly.
with you.
He'd say, John wants to get
Referral.
together. And again, this is where you need to craft up your letter, your informational interview, your speech, your script.
Yeah,
You know, have that down. Don't try to fumble through it when you do it. Again, I have mine typed up in Google Drive,
uh-huh.
okay? So send that over, and I can't tell you how many times I've had people get back and say, sure, you can talk to so-and-so.
And
Now, the next level is a little more challenging because now you've got somebody you don't know and you're trying to get together with. But again, if you're, you know, just trying to get information only, you're not asking them for a job. You're just trying to go out and say, look, I'm in a career transition phase of my life. Everybody is at some point in time. I'm trying to get more information about, you know, what it's like to be in operations at Pico or customer service in Pico, and I see, you know, see that you work there. Would you be willing to speak for a few minutes or sit down for a cup of coffee? You know, ask them if they can get together first. That's really the best way, because on the phone, it's easier for somebody to get off and not see who you are. You know, but if you have that personal connection one-on-one, and then what I did is I met somebody at the Career Link. I went there, took a class. There was somebody who was teaching the class from Montgomery County Community College. I asked him if we could meet one-on-one, and he did. He met with me about opportunities. But what I did is, as I started talking to him, I found out what his interests were. And he said he loved golf. He loved Gary Player. He was a golfer like from the 70s, but that's one of his favorite golfers. So I went home and I printed out a Gary Player quotes, famous quotes from Gary Player. And I got a $10 gift card from Dunkin' Donuts and I sent it out to him as a follow-up. And you would have thought he just received gold. I mean, he was so thrilled that he received this letter, and I thought, boy, I didn't even make it colors, like black and white, but that's the idea, is you're making an impression. So, but you have to do that. Think about your thank you letters, you know, try to do a handwritten card, a nice thank you card, and think of something special that you can connect to them with. Because if you do that, now you have time next time I go back. So next time I go back and speak with him, I can say, hey, have you been out golfing lately? You know, the weather's breaking, have you been out there? Oh, no, I haven't done it, but, you know, it eases into a conversation for me. All right, and then try to figure out what works, and don't worry if you don't hear back from people. Don't get your mind wrapped around, say, oh, they don't want to talk to me. I've had to wait 3-4 weeks to meet with somebody, and that's okay, you know? All right? All right, let me keep going a few minutes here. I'm going to wrap this up, and then Ren's going to come up. Okay. So networking, I'm going to bring this one up. Here's a graph which I had trouble printing out because some of it's in color. For some reason, it didn't print out too well. But let's go over here. Right here, sourcing the. This is what it basically is telling you is the upper right quadrant of this diagram here is really where you're going to have the best success in finding your next job. All right, and finding that career that's going to be exciting for you. Going through your social professional networks, I would say would be number one. Employee referral programs, that's fabulous too. If you know somebody who works in an organization, right? That's your number one. You know, so start thinking about those. Use the LinkedIn we talked about, Facebook, company career website. Don't be afraid to jump on the company site and go on there. Don't be afraid, guys. You know, go on there and find somebody. Find the HR person. Shoot them an email. How many people do that? How many people think just send emails out and that's it? You know, you have to be more creative these days. And once you start doing this, you'll get confidence. You know, initially in the beginning, you're going to be a little self-aware. Oh, what happened? They didn't get back to me. But after I started doing it for a while, it just became second nature to me to start sending emails out and not thinking twice about it. You know, I have a meeting tomorrow with somebody who works for the Chester County Economic Development Council that I just emailed. I haven't even met the guy yet. I just happened to email. I actually met somebody else that knows him, so that was really my main contact. But I just went after it. You know, so don't be afraid, okay? Internet job boards. Indeed.com is one that, you know, you can spend hours on these sites, but I have had some success with Indeed. You know, I don't try Monster and the other ones, but I still wouldn't recommend spending the bulk of your time there, you know? Spend a very small percentage of the time going on there. And again, also think about using it for those keyword searches that I talked about as well, to really try to help out, because by putting those keywords in, you'll see jobs come up that you never even knew were out there, but that will have some of the skills and abilities that you're good at doing that you might want to go into. Okay? All right, so this other one here is just an article I found, which was really interesting because it's talking about sphere of influence and people that you know versus people you don't know. And it says down here, it says, however, sociologists specializing in the field of social interactions have found certain interesting information that, although counterintuitive, networking with the other group, this is the one with which people have weak ties, is more beneficial. So networking in a different group other than your sphere of influence is beneficial because more novel information goes to individuals through weak rather than strong ties. The reason for that is because our close friends tend to move in the same circles we do. The information they receive overlaps considerably with what we already know. And the quality or strength of interpersonal ties is based on a combination of several things, such as the amount of time that people know each other and level of emotional intensity and so forth. But it's really interesting how this is saying to go outside that. So again, it's not to use your sphere of influence. You want to use that as much as possible. But when you're going into another field altogether, branch outside that. Because most of the people that I work with, a lot of my good friends are trainers. You know, Ren's a trainer, other people that I know that I still keep in touch with, my old employer, they're trainers. They're going in the same area that I'm going into, right? Or in the same area that I'm in, training and development. I'm thinking about branching outside that altogether. I thought about going back for counseling, going back for teaching. So now I have to get outside of that area, okay? All right, that just expounds upon it. Then here's a career planning outline that I found, which you can go onto Google and type in career planning outline and hit images, and then you can pull this document up. That's the best way to do it, and then print it out. But here it talks about having a plan laid out for, you know, your short-term, long-term goals. All right, does everyone know what a SMART goal is? What's a SMART goal? SMART? What is SMART, Ren? SMART goal. Specific,
Specific,
realistic,
there's a time frame attached to it,
attainable,
and attainable.
okay,
I'm gonna talk about
realistic and timely. Okay, so that's a SMART goal. So 3 to 6 months out, 6 to 12, beyond the 12 months considered. All right. Again, this ties back to being organized. This is going to help you out. So if you have this, start setting up your Google Docs, keep yourself organized. All right. It's going to make it a lot easier. Think about I have a folder which I didn't show you. It was a networking file. It was a Word document of networking of all the people that I contacted through LinkedIn. I put it down there. LinkedIn contacted, Bob Wood to reach out to Colette at Pico. Next one, I have about 10 of those, of all LinkedIn contacts, so I know the dates of who I talked to in there. And then further down in my networking, I just have all the people that I've talked to from October till now, and little notes about it. You're just keeping yourself organized. Okay, all right. I'm going to leave that up to Ren from here on, so I know it went a little bit over time, and I apologize for that, but yes, question.
Just after all this, have you found your job yet?
No, I have an offer out there right now on the table, which I'm going to consider, but I haven't. I'm still searching. The volunteer organization that I'm at right now, the director wants to bring me on at some point in time, but that can happen in the summer. It can happen next year because they're waiting on what's called a capacity building grant to fund the position. So I'm in a unique state right now, kind of in limbo, why I'm volunteering for them. I can't wait for that to happen. And the thing you have to remember about nonprofit organizations too is that they are people that have good intentions coming in here to try to work, but they may not have the business acumen to run a nonprofit. So I'm not saying that about the organization that I'm at, but keep that in mind when you're looking for a nonprofit organization. They may not be as structured as you want. So are you willing to do that, you know? So we'll see what happens, you know? I don't know. Well, thank you guys. I'm gonna let Ren come up and take over for the next part of it.
Thank you.
I'll be around for questions too afterwards.
Okay, let's give me a second to bring up my PowerPoint presentation. All right, welcome everyone. My name is Renato Amarena. Yes, I'm Italian, just in case you're wondering. My background, I've got about 25 years of training experience. I've worked as a trainer in the corporate world. I've worked my way up to training manager for an advertising agency in New York City.
Yeah, I saw that in your bio.
Yeah.
That's good.
I've also taught at 2 business colleges, and I've been doing some training and coaching on my own, specializing in presentation and public speaking skills, but I've also done some motivational coaching as well. I've also written a book, and that book is right here, The Success Factor. And what I plan on doing today is share some simple strategies with you that I discuss in this book on achieving goals. So on that note, I'd like to get started. What do these folks have in common? Anybody?
They're successful and they're rich.
Besides being rich, I'm looking for personality traits here, or habits or traits.
They're go-getters.
They're go-getters, right? Good. What else? What else?
They have a passion for what they do.
They're passionate for what they're doing. What else? Now we're getting on the right track. Keep it coming.
They're positive people.
They're the ultimate in positive thinking.
Jack Welch is a jerk.
He's got drive, right? Let's see. They have drive. They have vision. They have passion. They're very goal-oriented, right? Strong work ethic. They're persistent. God, that's probably the biggest one. Persistence. I mean, if you talk to successful people, you say, well, gee, how did you do it? I just kept at it. I failed so many times, but I kept at it until I finally got it. I finally won. So persistence is a big one. And they have a sense of urgency. These are the habits or traits that we have to adopt if we're going to achieve our goals. I'll give you a second to write those down. All right. So let's talk about goal setting. Goals versus dreams. I want to run this by you. I want to lose weight and get fit. Is it a goal or a dream?
Dream.
It's a dream. Why?
There's no date signed.
John mentioned that, right? Let's talk about SMART goals. SMART goals are specific. I want to lose 10 pounds by June 1st. Right? I need a time frame. If there's no time frame, it's not a goal, it's a dream, folks. Right? What else? It's got to be realistic and attainable. Right? I'd love to play center field for the New York Giants, but that's probably not going to happen. Right? It's got to be attainable. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now, my goals. I'm going to show you my goals. CC stands for Competent Communicator. I'm a member of Toastmasters. I just completed that Tuesday night. So my goal, thank you, my goal was to get it done by, to get my Competent Communication designation by April or before. Got it done by Tuesday night. Another goal I had was to compete in the Toastmasters International Public Speaking Competition. I'm in it.
Yay.
Yay! I'm in it. So getting it done. John talked about getting things done, doing things. You gotta get moving. Do whatever you need to do to get the job done. Because think about this: if you don't do anything, will anything happen?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. So what are your goals? Now, you guys are going to do some work. I've got a handout for you. I'm going to ask you to write down your goals, and I want you to also attach a time frame to it. Yes, you're going to have to make a commitment today. So I want you to write down, and it could be anything. It could be maybe you want to lose weight, maybe you're thinking about writing a book, Maybe you want to find that elusive job, whatever it is. Write it down, and I'm going to give you a minute or two to do that. Make sure you attach a time frame to it. It could be 1 goal, 2 goals. I have left room for 3 goals. If you only have 1, that's fine. All done? Are you thinking?
Are we doing the time frame already? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just add a time frame to it.
The first one was easy.
How about as soon as possible?
ASAP.
Or yesterday. That's Panicsville, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, that's we don't want
So
to. We don't want to
realistic or
approach.
attainable?
We don't want to approach goals from a panic mode.
Okay.
Right? We want to be very organized and methodical about it.
Yeah, I made the mistake of my last job being a 1099er, so, and I can't, collect unemployment.
Yeah, but you know what? As John said, I mean, just get out there and do things. Everything is a learning experience, and you never know what comes from that. Contacts, the work experience that you can add to your resume. You don't know.
Yeah,
You don't know.
you're right. The key is to get moving.
That's the thing.
Yes.
If you do nothing, nothing happens.
Right.
Right? So that's the goal of the book, is to get you motivated to achieve your goals. That's the bottom line. How are we all doing? Do we have at least 1 goal written down with a time frame?
Yes,
Okay. Can I move forward?
yes.
All right, let's move forward. All right, so strategies. Any procrastinators in the house? Okay, thank you for your honesty. All right, we all tend to procrastinate sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So, creating an action plan. What to do tomorrow, next week, next month. So we're going to create an action plan. If you look at your form, I've given you a large area to put in place your action plan. Now, well, let's stick with this first. Let me give you an example. You have to kind of work your way backwards to create the action plan. Suppose I wanted to lose 20 pounds by the summer. All right, it's the end of March, so I've got what? I've got April, May, and I've got June, so I've got 3 months. So how much weight do I have to lose each month?
6.5.
About 6.5 pounds, right? So now I can break that down even further, right? So if I have to do 6.5 pounds per month, then how much do I have to lose each week? About 1.5 pounds. That's very doable, isn't it?
Yep.
Now, also, by breaking it down, doesn't it seem a lot easier?
Oh, yeah.
All right, 20 pounds, oh my God, I can't do 20 pounds.
Right.
But I can do 1.5 pounds, right? It doesn't sound that bad. So now you've got a game plan. So now you have a goal to set on a weekly basis. So I know I need to lose 1.5 pounds every week. If I do that, in 3 months I'll lose about 20 pounds. Make sense?
Yeah. Weight Watchers works that way. It's great.
Oh, they break it down like that.
Yeah.
So breaking down the goal, I mean, suppose I had to lose 100 pounds, right? Oh my God, 100 pounds? Impossible, right?
Right.
But if I break that down, instead of losing or thinking about losing 100 pounds this year, if I break it down to a monthly and weekly goal, and well, that's not bad. I only have a couple of pounds. I can lose 10 pounds. But think about this: if I lose 10 pounds a month, at the end of the year, I've lost how much?
120.
120 pounds, right? But if I thought about, or just focused on losing 120 pounds or 100 pounds, right? It sounds ominous, doesn't it?
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah. It's like eating an elephant.
Right, so
One
break
bite.
down the goal. Break it down to, a weekly basis, and you can go daily. I mean, it's up to you. But the key is to have something to measure. If you can't measure it, then how do you know you're going to achieve the goal or not? Probably not. So whatever your goal was, I don't care what it was, losing weight, finding a job, whatever it is, maybe you said, I'm going to send out 100 resumes a month, fine. If you're going to do that, then what do you need to do every week? And then break that down to every day. Does that make sense? Okay? Now, procrastinators, so listen up. I should versus I must is one of the strategies to talk about in my book, besides creating your action plan. When I have something to do, I always tell myself I must. I never say I should. Now, I'll give you an example. How many times have you talked to people and said, well, I should lose weight, or I should go to the gym? Can't you almost hear the but in there? Right? I don't do that. When I go to, I'm pretty dedicated, pretty self-motivated. I try to go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. But all day long, I tell myself, I must go to the gym, I must go to the gym, I must go to the gym, I must go to the gym. I pound it in my head. So by the end of the day, there's not a question whether or not I'm going, it's when I'm going. Does that make sense? Now, it's a small thing, so it's just a word. But the should is almost like, I should, but it's okay if I don't.
Like, I'll try.
I'll try. I hate the word try. Don't try. Do. I will, or I must. So that's what I tell myself. So I want you to get rid of should, replace it with must. And must also creates a sense of urgency, doesn't it? I've got to get this done. There's not a question about it. I've got to get it done, and I've got to get it done ASAP. All right, so here's the examples. I should go to the gym versus I must go to the gym. You see how much more powerful the second one is? And just replace gym with whatever. I must find a job. I must do this, that, and the other thing. Simple? Makes sense? Helpful? And so, again, it's just a play on words, but it changes your psyche. Now, positive visualization. Talk about this in the book. I don't care what the goal is. Maybe it's getting a job. Maybe it's just doing really well on the interview. But positive visualization really works, folks. I've been using this since I was a kid in high school. And I didn't even know what it was called back then. I just naturally did it. Now, before you blow this strategy off, I want to share this with you. How many of you recognize this fellow?
Only because his name is below the picture.
That's Michael Jordan. Look at that. I visualized where I wanted to be, what kind of player I wanted to become. I knew exactly where I wanted to go, and I focused on getting there. So he uses positive visualization. A lot of successful people do, so I want you to do that. And we're going to do a little exercise in a second. So I told you that I use it. When I was a kid in high school, I got interested in high-end audio equipment. And I'm not talking about the stuff you see in Radio Shack. I'm talking about the type of equipment you see at Worldwide Stereo. Anybody ever go there? They got nice stuff in there, don't they? Expensive, but nice. I was 16 years old, and I told my friends that I was going to buy myself a really expensive stereo. Guess what? They all laughed at me. But I didn't just think about it. I pictured it in my mind. And every day I visualized, I pictured it in my mind. I thought about how nice it was going to look in my house and how great it was going to sound. And that motivated me to save the money to buy it. Until one day I finally had enough money to buy it. And I'll never forget that day. I was 16 years old. I didn't even drive yet. I had to ask my mom's boyfriend. My parents got divorced when I was a kid. My mom's boyfriend took me to the store, and I walked in. Now, I have to paint the picture for you. I was 16. I had hair down to my shoulders. I'm wearing a t-shirt, baggy jeans, and my favorite red canvas Converse All-Star sneakers, which were ripped. So I walked up to the guy, and I said, I want that amplifier, those speakers, that turntable, and that cassette deck. Well, he looked at me up and down and said, sure, kid, whatever you say. At that moment, I didn't say a word. I reached into my pocket and I started peeling off $100 bills. And I was counting 100, 200, 300, 400. By the time I got up to $900, these guys started tripping over themselves. They're like, quick, you, get the speakers, you go down to the amplifier. It was awesome. I have a picture of that stereo. Ooh, what happened? There it is. Now, I may look a little dated. I mean, remember, I was 16 years old. This was in the 70s. But that's the equipment. Those speakers were $550 in the late 70s. That was a lot of money. So when I walked in and told them I wanted those, they thought I was crazy. But I did it. How did I do it? Positive visualization. I still use positive visualization today. I shared with you that I had a couple of goals, right? One was to get my competent communication designation by Toastmasters, and the other was to compete in the Toastmasters International Public Speaking Competition. Well, done. Won the first round, there's my trophy. I picture them handing me that trophy, and that's all I thought about with respect to achieving this goal. So this works, folks. It really does. Again, going back to Michael Jordan. All right, does the same thing. Round 2. I won the second round in the competition. Third round is next month. Yeah, so I'm really pumped about that. And I'm already picturing that trophy in my hand. Now, these simple strategies discussed in my book, I actually have copies of it if anyone's interested. Or you can, it's also available online at Amazon.com. I give you a little link there if you want to jot that down. I also have a website, successfactorforyou.com. You're welcome to go to the site. I also blog there, so you can check my blog. And every month I put a new blog post related to presentation and public speaking skills. Sometimes it's a motivational post, but if you're interested in the book, see me after the presentation. I'd be happy to sign it for you if you're interested. Okay? Now, the second half of my presentation, we're going to focus on interviewing skills. I know we're running a little short on time, but how many of you here get nervous when it comes to going on a job interview? Thank you for your honesty. I don't want that, right? We don't want this. Instead, we want this, right? Is this better? This is much better. So how do we get there? How do we get there? The 3 Ps. Plan, practice, prepare. Okay, the 3 Ps. Plan, practice, prepare. I can tell you for a fact, if I'm well prepared for the interview, I'm not nervous. In fact, I'm beaming with confidence. Isn't that what we want? So we have to be fully prepared. So how do we do that? Well, John mentioned CareerLink. I don't know if you're aware of this, but CareerLink offers free resume writing workshops. So is your resume up to speed? Is it up to date? Can it be better? I'm always trying to improve my resume. So you should do the same thing. If you haven't updated in 6 months to a year, it probably needs to be updated. Right? And you can go to CareerLink for free, folks. You can't beat free, right? Free is a beautiful thing. So make sure your resume is up to speed. Now, research the company. Let me paint a scenario for you. You send out the resume, you get a phone call. Hey, you know what, John, we really liked your resume. I'd like to have you come in for an interview. Great. What's the next thing you should do?
Go look it up on the internet.
Research the company. Folks, you mentioned it, the internet. Even your local landscaping company's got a website. Everyone's got a website today. There's just no excuse not to be prepared. All right, so go to the website, get as much information as you can, get a little background on the company, find out what industry they're in, what products and services they offer. Sometimes there's a history. You know, the company was started in 1989. The founder is Joe Schmo, Ann Smith, or whoever. Okay, have those answers ready because you're going to get that question. I can guarantee it.
You can also go to LinkedIn and find out.
Yeah, you can do the LinkedIn. Right.
Talk to you.
Right, you can get some background on that, but it should be on the website too. But if not, you can go to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Now, folks, what do you think of when you see this picture?
I want to be the red one.
You want to be the red one, right? Folks, the reality is that we're competing with several people for one job. So we need to stand out. That means we have to be 100% on our game. Right? We have to stand out. And we want to hit a home run when we go on the interview. So how do we do that? We have to be prepared. And enthusiasm, folks. Enthusiasm sells. Think about this. Suppose I was selling this pen. And I say to you, I'm sorry, dear, I don't know your name.
Lisa.
Lisa. Okay, I'm like, Lisa, I got this pen and, you know, it's a plastic pen. It's got a rubber tip here to hold, and it's a steel ball pen tip. It's 99 cents. Do you want it?
No.
Right? Versus, Lisa, you've got to try this pen. This pen is awesome. Look at this. It's got a rubber paper that fit in my hand. It's nice and comfortable. It's a steel ballpoint pen. It rolls like silk. And it's only 99 cents. How many do you want?
One'll do for now.
You see the difference?
Yeah.
Enthusiasm sells. I know that's a corny line, but it's so true. Think about classes or presentations you've been to. I went to one presentation, the fellow stood up in front of the room, clasped his hands like this, and talked at the floor and said, I'd like to talk to you today about... Spoke like that for an hour.
That's agonizing.
It was agony, right?
Surprisingly, they were still there. at the end.
Well, they were, but what were they doing? They were doing what I call the bob. What's the bob?
They were sleeping.
Right? We don't want that. So enthusiasm sells. So when you're on the interview and they ask you questions, try to show a little enthusiasm. Think about this. If you're not very enthusiastic about the job, do you expect them to be enthusiastic about you? Probably not, right? So enthusiasm sells. Now, interview questions. We all love these, right? What do you know about our company? I already mentioned you've got to go to the website before you go on the interview. All right, this question, I'm not John, maybe you can back me up on this. I think I've gotten this question on every single interview I've ever gone on. And when I get this question, I'm beaming with confidence. Why? Because I've got the answers. I had one job interview for a trainer with a credit union. And the vice president turned to me and she said, well, tell me, Renato, what do you know about us? And like I said, I was beaming with confidence. I was waiting for that question. Waiting for it. Couldn't wait to get it. I rattled off a dozen different things I knew about the company. When I was done, she turned to the training manager and said, he sounds better than a commercial. So you've got to have that level of preparedness. Okay? Tell me about yourself. Well, I was born in 19... No, they don't want that, right? What do they want? They want to know how you fit in, right? So they don't care that you were born in 19 whatever and then you played with model planes when you were a kid. You've got to relate it to the job. Let's say I'm interviewing for a project manager job. Right? They're looking to see your personality type. So you might say something like, well, you know, I've always been very organized. And when I was a kid, I used to put my crayons in the order I used to use them in, not in color order, but that's the kind of stuff they want to hear. If I'm in customer service or sales, right, they might want to hear, well, you know, I've always been a people person. I was very social. When I was in high school, I was voted best to succeed in sales or social events or networking or planning or whatever. So that's the kind of stuff that they're looking for. Kind of gear it towards the job that you're interviewing for. They're looking for your personality traits. About this, resume. How many times have you had people who just mull over every single detail of your resume? You've got to be prepared to answer questions about gaps in history, things that you've done, and try to add accomplishments and results. I told you I taught at 2 business colleges. One of the courses I taught was Math Foundations, and I'm very proud of this. I had over a 90% pass rate on every single class I taught. It's on my resume. So try to quantify things. Well, decrease expenses by 3%, increase sales 12%, increase productivity, user or worker productivity by 3.5%. If you can quantify these things and put them on your resume, it just makes you look like a stronger candidate. All right, what's the goal of the resume? To get the interview, right? So you want to make the resume powerful. So make sure you have accomplishments and results on there. Make sense? All right, describe a time when you overcame a challenge or obstacle through persistence. You need to have the story before you go on the interview. You're going to get these questions. How many of you have gotten these questions already?
And I've given them the interview people, and it's, you know, in this instance, what would you do? Or like for customer service,
Right.
an angry customer.
Right, an irate customer. That's another question. Tell me about a time when you had to deal with an irate customer or a difficult employee. You're going to get these questions, especially if you have to deal with a lot of people in your job, customer service, sales, customer relationship manager. Right, so again, you have to have these stories before you go on the interview. Make sense? This is also by having these answers is also going to help you reduce your what? Level of nervousness. What are you not good at? I hate this question. Or what's your weakness? Now, again, what if I'm interviewing for a project manager job? We all know John's very, very organized, but what if I said for a project manager job, well, I'm not very organized. I just disqualified myself for the job, right? Or what if I'm interviewing for a sales job and says, well, I hate working with people? You can't say that, right? So you say, but you have to believe in what you're saying. So say something that's not detrimental to getting the job. Or you could say, well, I'd like to be better organized, but here's what I've done to rectify that. I now have alerts on my smartphone. I keep a to-do list. I keep file folders, and that helps me to stay organized. Does that make sense? Because how many of you have gotten this question? I've gotten this question. Nobody else? Just me?
No, no,
All right, a couple people?
Yeah, and I've read in books where they say you should, I don't know how sincere it might sound, but you would say
don't have
something
any-
like, you make it a positive, like.
Right.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying.
not good at getting home in time for dinner with my wife or whatever, because I'm at work,
Right.
until 8
Well,
o'clock.
I'm an overachiever, it's almost to a fault,
fault, right, or I'm
But
too-
again, you have to believe what you say. So I might say something, well, I'd like to be better organized, but here's what I've done to rectify that. I keep a to-do list, I put alerts on my phone, I email myself reminders, whatever it takes. But you have to believe it, because if you don't believe it, are they gonna believe it?
No.
Probably not, right? Probably not. All right, greatest accomplishments. You should have this. Guess what, folks? I have published author on my resume. I'm proud of it. I'm working on another book on effective public speaking. I'm waiting to see how far I get in the Toastmasters International Public Speaking Competition before I publish that book. But you need to have your success story. And it doesn't have to be, or maybe it's, you achieved, I don't know, you made the dean's list at school. Something. Give them something that you're proud of. All right, now, questions for the interviewer. Folks, if you don't have any questions, it shows or it looks like you're not very interested in the position. So one question that I always ask is, why is this position open? I want to know. Maybe, did somebody get fired? Did somebody quit? Or maybe it's because the ideal answer is, well, we're growing leaps and bounds, we need to add another person. I'd like to know that. That tells me what? That it's a good, stable environment. The company's growing, and so they're taking on new employees. They have to. So I want to know that. What will my typical day be like? Now, I think this is a really great question because it shows that you're picturing yourself doing the job already, and that shows a lot of interest. Plus, you'll get an idea of what the job is like, right? Because, well, in the beginning, you'll shadow somebody, and you'll watch and observe, and then after a couple of weeks or a month, you're going to do this, that, and the other thing. Do you have any questions or doubts as to my ability to successfully perform in this position? I read this in interviewing skills, and I really like this question. I had an interview for a trainer job once with a credit union. And I asked this question, and the fellow said, well, Renato, you don't have any experience in working in a credit union. I said, but a big difference. I worked at a bank. I was a trainer for a bank. I know it's not the same thing, but I still had to work with financial people, bank tellers, so it's a similar industry. So I was able to what? Mitigate his concern. And you need to nip this in the bud on the interview. Why?
You can't let it fester.
You can't let it fester because when it comes time for this person to make a decision, well, Renato doesn't have any experience working at a credit union, I'm going to go with Ann Smith. But I've minimized that concern, right? By saying, hey, I forgot, I didn't realize that's on your resume. It's on page 2 of your resume. You worked at a bank as a trainer. When are you looking to make a decision? This is for you. Guys, I'm the king of follow-up. That question's for you. Well, we're looking to make a decision at the end of next week. What does that give me?
When to call back.
Right, that gives me a free pass to call back. If I don't hear from them next Friday, I'm going to call them or email them. Make sense? You've got to follow up. Make sense? All right. How many of you have had this experience? Is this fun?
No.
That credit union I was telling you about, I had this exact same thing. Now, I can see how you can get intimidated. 3 people across the table and it's just you. This is how I handled it. I ignored the other two people. Whoever asked me the question, I look right at that person and I answer their question. Now I get a question over here. I turn to this person. I'm ignoring these other people and I answer your question. I get a question over here. I turn to you and I'm only looking at you and I answer your question. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So don't be intimidated, folks. Focus on whoever asked the question, answer the question, and when you get a question from one of the other 3 or 4 or 5 people, just turn to that person and answer their question. Look right in the eye and answer their question. Does that help? Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay? Have your stories, or just a recap. All right? Have a success story. And you need to have that before the interview. Overcoming an obstacle. Dealing with difficult customers or irate employees. And have an example of going above and beyond. Companies doesn't want to hear, well, you just did the minimum to get the job done. Hey, you know what? I once went on an interview, it was a group interview, and this young girl, she was working at a dress store. I'll never forget this story. And she gave an example. She says, well, you know, this one girl came in, it was the, I think the high school prom, and she wanted a lavender dress and we didn't have any. So they left. At the end of the day, this girl that worked at the store punched in, you know, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, at the end of the day, she, on her own, went to another store to find a lavender dress, brought it back to her store, and called the customer. The girl came back to buy the dress. I thought that was a fabulous story. So have some kind of story like that. Does that make sense? That's going to impress the interviewer, right? All right. Follow up. I don't care, you got stuck in 2 hours of traffic, you're tired, you're hungry. John mentioned this. Send the thank you letter the day of the interview, either a personal note or at least an email. Now, when I go on an interview, I always grab the person's business card. Why? Because now I have the correct spelling of their names. I mean, look at my name, Renato Amarena. How are you going to spell that? Nobody spells my name right. But I've also got their phone number, I've got their email address, I've got the whole 9 yards. So there's no excuse not to at least send a thank you email the same day of the interview, as soon as you get home. Okay? 1 week later, send a follow-up email. Hey, John, this is Renato. I really enjoyed meeting with you last week. As I mentioned, I feel that my several years of training experience would really help, you know, me hit the street running here. I'm looking forward to hearing from you again. Sincerely, Renato. Or something like that. Make sense? Okay? So after a week, send that follow-up. After 2 weeks, I would either call or send another email. Make sense?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to call. I mean, and keep it light and simple. Don't say, well, you didn't call me in 2 weeks, you have me waiting here. You can't do that, right? Instead, hey, this is Renato. John, I haven't heard from you in a few weeks. I was just wondering if you made a decision on the project manager job, sales job, trainer job, whatever the job is. I'm still very interested in the position. Looking forward to hearing from you again soon. Make sense? Light and airy. And hopefully, you get hired. Questions for me? Okay, if there's no questions, thank you very much.